What's up, 12s? The band is back together. We've got all four of us tonight on the Seahawks Collective, presented by Hog Media. We've got a lot of fun tonight because your Hawks have been in the headlines this week for a really good reason, and we're going to talk about it. And not to mention, we do have the Seahawks draft blog himself, Rob Staten, on the show. We've got the Hawk blogger back, Brian Nemhauser. A lot of people missed you last week, Brian. They made sure to let us know in the chat. And the Athletics' best, Michael Sean Dugar, covering the Hawks. Feel free to drop any questions you have concerning the Hawks extensions, their moves in free agency, and maybe this little thing called the NFL draft that's coming up in about 30 days. We'll do our best to try to get to all these questions. But first, let's just start by saying hi. Brian, I'll start with you. How was your week away from the gang?
You know what, AB? I missed you guys, absolutely. But maybe not as much as you might think. It was really nice to get away. It was great to be on the Oregon coast and played golf. It was me and 23 other friends do this every year, and it's a super big privilege to be able to get the time and to be in that part of the country. And we got great weather. It was shorts weather, walking around 36 holes a day. 30,000 plus steps a day and some decent golf. I wouldn't, for me, it wasn't always great, but it was decent. So yeah, had a really nice time, but I'm glad you guys held down the fort and, got some extra airtime because God knows I talk too much.
What was your best shot of the week, Brian? What was that was like the best hit I had?
I was going to say Jameson, but probably not. So I think my best shot was, my God, there was a lot of shooting. I actually was probably a putt. I made like a 40-foot birdie putt that was on Pacific Dunes, which is probably their hardest course there, and that was pretty cool. So I'd say that.
There you go. All right, and Mike, what did your week look like so far, or last week, I guess?
Every week is kind of running together at this point. Just more dad duty.
We're in the off season, Mike. Come on, we're in the off season.
It's just technically I'm on vacay from the Athletic right now for the week, which is of course when they sign Jax and have a press conference tomorrow and sign Jake. It's never good timing to be off, so to speak. But honestly, yeah, the off season kind of stinks for people who have like small kids, right? Because the off season doesn't work around your schedule. You change in a diaper, and then they re-sign Josh Jones, or it's like it's nap time. Like I woke up to them signing Jax. That broke at like 6:30 a.m. I didn't go to sleep till 5 because my son has like a nasal issue right now. So anyway, things are going good. I'm happy to talk about the Seahawks while I'm awake. I have no kids with me right now, so let's roll.
All right, well, we'll jump into all of that in just a moment. But Rob, I feel like we do have to shout you out because you might have been doing some behind the scenes work. You had a JSN hoodie on the day of his extension. Like, what else have you got up your sleeve?
Well, I don't have a Devon Witherspoon up my sleeve or anything like that. But the last few days have been great. Like this is one of my favorite times of the draft actually because nothing's happening. And there apart from the JSN extension, but I've been able to make some calls this week and find some stuff out, and I've sort of really dug into some of the players that I really wanted to get done that I hadn't got done. So yeah, pretty good. It's like a month to the draft already. Like it's a month away. So I love these next 4 weeks because like when it's all done, everything's just over until training camp. So for me, this is kind of like it's a great month and then rest.
What's that moment like for you after the draft? Is it like, I can't believe that actually happened? I'm done for a little bit. Like what does that moment feel like for you, Rob?
Really melancholy, like really like down because you just have so many things like to occupy your brain. And then like, who are they going to draft? Like what's going to happen? What are the other teams going to do? And then you have all the answers. So then you don't have anything to think about like the day after the draft, like apart from like the players that the Seahawks have drafted, but I've already done a lot of work on the players. So it's not like I'm going to go and watch them all again. And then the other thing is that there's a whole bunch of players that you really like to end up on teams you don't like. So every year, like the Niners will take a player that I really liked. Malik Mustafa was somebody I interviewed Malik Mustafa and really liked Malik Mustafa. And he ends up with the Niners and you're thinking, why do you have to go there? So there's all that stuff that you have to contend with as well after the draft. So yeah, really melancholic and a bit down, but there's a World Cup this summer. So like any other good Englishman, I'm already looking forward to that as well.
Yes, let's go. That is very exciting. But let's get to the best news of the offseason. In my opinion, that JSN is not going anywhere. He signed his 4-year extension, $168 million with the Seattle Seahawks, making him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Pretty cool that the Seattle Seahawks have that. And Brian, there wasn't a lot of buzz maybe around this extension. Like maybe there would be other players in the NFL, and it just seemed to kind of happen and pop up and no drama and all smiles. What have you heard about maybe what that process looked like for the Seahawks?
I didn't get much info other than the news breaking, and I think that that's a credit to JSN and his representation, but really a credit to John Schneider in the front office, because I don't think there's a lot more that JSN could have asked for that the Seahawks didn't give. I mean, this was a record-setting, market resetting contract that gives him, I think, $42.5 million in cash in year one, and it was like a significant jump compared to other players that have signed these deals. And, even through year three, I think he gets 70+% of his contract money through those first 3 years. And for Seattle, it's going to be a relatively small increase in cap. Cap and cash are different in terms of how those flow through. And JSN's going to be getting a lot of cash. The Seahawks aren't going to be actually realizing a lot of that cap hit right away. So maybe a $6 million cap increase this year. And then next year, his cap hit number actually goes down a little bit. So in fact, Cooper Kupp has the largest cap of any wide receiver on the Seahawks in 2026. So when it all was said and done, AB, the Seahawks end up with the most costly wide receiver room in the NFL. I think the average per year, average annual value is like $83 million. And maybe the thing that sticks out to me the most is, and I have to admit this, I don't want to take away from what JSN has accomplished, but I think this kind of puts it into perspective. I don't think he gets this deal. I don't think the Seahawks give him this deal. I don't think there's this lack of drama if he isn't the person that he is. He's the player and the person. And if you, just before we started this show, TMZ came out with a story about Puka Nacua, biting a woman who tried to have a restraining order and saying some anti-Semitic comments, allegedly. And that's not the first time, the third time, the 10th time in the last 3 months that there's been a Puka Nacua, what is he doing story. And he's up for a contract. And I'm really curious how that's going to go relative to what JSN did. I don't think it will be quite as smooth. And I certainly don't think ownership will be quite as comfortable handing over that kind of commitment to a player that did not do what JSN has done, which has been a model player and a model citizen.
Yeah, Mike, I'm interested in your perspective on this because you spent a lot of time around JSN from when he's gotten to Seattle, and even just time at the VMAC, right? Not even just on game days. And when you talk about a player, basically what Brian is alluding to, who's going to be the face of your team, and you're going to hand him over all of that money. What led, do you think, the Seahawks to allow themselves to be like, yeah, we're going to get this deal done sooner than later?
Yeah, good business, good business savvy. That's number one. It's very, very important. John Schneider is very close with Howie Roseman, general manager of the Eagles. I believe they've been GMs for the same amount of time, I think 2010. And Howie, he's been doing this for years, where it's like, all right, we hit on this blue chip guy. He's got his 3rd year extension before like St. Patrick's Day. Like, he gets it done because it's smart, right? You just get in front of the market, because all these markets jump for the most part. Tight end stayed stagnant for a little bit. Safety had some years where it didn't move, running back, but eventually somebody resets all these, and you just want to get ahead of that. The longer you wait, the more you end up like Jerry Jones. So that's number one. Number two, yeah, it's like Brian says, it's the person, because you're giving somebody a lot of bread. That's a lot of cash. When you draft somebody, you have to take that into account too. But the risk assessment is not the same, right? Like and we've all looked at like draft profiles and stuff, and I'm sure Rob's got a ton of notes on guys now, where it's like, this guy runs really fast, jumps really high, but he got arrested for something, a couple years ago, or he's got these character concerns, or whatever it is. Like the word out of his college is that he's a bad work ethic, whatever, right? Like, all right, well, if I'm only giving you $2 million, you got arrested for some weed a couple of years ago, I'll draft you, But it's like, if I'm giving you what is it, Jax, is $168 million. Well, I need you to, that background check would be a lot more thorough. especially with the cash up front. And John's pretty open about talking about that with trades too as well. He talked about it when they brought in Shaheed and Leo and Ernest, and I think that's a bit of a learning process for them. It hasn't always been that way. They've traded for some guys or signed some guys or drafted some guys who didn't work on the personality front. So I think part of it is learning, okay, well, we shouldn't do that anymore. And then it's also just like, all right, you recognize a good person when you see him. I don't see Jax outside of the allotted time at work, right? Like, I don't know any more about Jax outside of the building than he knows about me. But like, I just get the sense he's a good dude, and so I was very happy for him. And I think that last thing is you just know that there's some guys you can tell that when they do get paid, they'll still be the same guy in terms of a work standpoint and a hunger standpoint, because that's not always the same as well. I want to say Aaron Curry talked about that a little bit. Like when he got paid, it's like, oh, I'm good. It's like, well, no. Now you like you keep going, but he had to mature and learn that a little bit. You already know Jax is not, like Jax is not gonna be one of those guys. I feel the same way about like Kobe. Kobe got $40 million. I'm sure he's very happy, and now he's gonna like work his ass off to try to get like 80 the next time. Like there's some guys who are just wired like that. Jax is like that, and the Seahawks paid him because they know he's wired like that.
Yeah, that is certainly a thing in all levels of sport, right? Getting complacent when you make the team to when you get that big time contract that is everywhere. And Rob, what sticks out to you when you heard this news about JSN signing this extension?
I think just the effectiveness of, like everyone's been saying, the fact that it was done with minimum of fuss. There was no having to barter through the media, which has happened in the past with other teams and in particular with the Seahawks, with some of their main players. That it applies a lot of pressure to the Rams now because they're not going to have the benefit of being able to use the fifth-year option to their advantage to sort of spread things out a little bit with Puka Nacua because he doesn't have a fifth-year option. So he's now going to have a look at the average per year, and this could really hammer the Rams in the way that they have to structure their contract with Puka Nacua. And then this news drops today that he's going around biting people, allegedly. And I don't know how that plays into what they want to do. I mean, with the greatest respect, Puka Nacua is starting to sound like a bit of a knob. And it makes you wonder that, it makes you wonder with the 13th overall pick, they may well have a chance to draft the top receiver in this draft class. Mm-hmm. And it makes you wonder a little bit whether they just want to play this by ear, whether they want to dangle him. If Jalen Waddle's a first and a third, what's Puka Nacua? Like, I don't know. Like, it feels to me like we've got a month to go. We've got an owners meeting next week. All of the GMs are going to be in the same place at the same time, whether there are still things that could happen over the next few weeks. And I just wonder how the Rams are looking at this and wondering what they're going to do, because if you can get Jordan Tyson, who by all accounts seems like a much more measured person, very competitive. Mekhi Lemon seems a bit off the wall, but a good football player nonetheless. Carnell Tate's very solid, not quite as quick and dynamic maybe as Lemon and Tyson, but a very solid individual, solid player. You might just think, we'll take one of those guys and we'll think about what we're going to do with Puka Nacua here.
Yeah, just quickly on that. Sorry, AB.
No, I was going to ask you, just, taking that into consideration with the news that broke right before we jumped on here. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that Mike and Rob said that triggered some things for me. One is, I think it's also interesting who people surround themselves with, not just players, but just people in general. And this year, Kanan, Jack's brother, essentially like kind of stepped back from his baseball career and has kind of been managing some of JSN's stuff in the background. And I've had the chance to meet him. I'm sure Mike has as well. He's a really solid guy, good guy. And you compare that to Puka's brother, who was charged with, or not charged, but allegedly stole a car from a Lakers player at a party. And I don't think it's like a coincidence that those things happen. I also think you look at a guy like Puka Nacua, who said publicly, like, he's not sure how long he'll play. Like, he's not sure he's going to play into his 30s. And so, like, for a fan, you look at it and you're like, well, Puka Nacua averaged more yards per game than JSN. He is almost impossible to guard. He is like clearly, if not the best receiver in the NFL, he's in the conversation. You pay him whatever you have to pay him. But if you're the person writing the check, as Mike was saying, like, you as the GM know that that's going to be your neck on the line, not really the players, because the players going to get paid either way. And you don't have to go further than like San Francisco, who signed Brandon Ayuk to a massive deal, and he hasn't basically played for them since he signed that deal, and he's on his way out of San Francisco. So these are really challenging decisions that might seem obvious, and I think teams feel really grateful. It's a crazy thing to say, but I think teams feel grateful when there's a player that they feel comfortable giving $170 million to. And I think that you can look, I agree with Mike. I don't think Kobe Bryant had anything to do with the person, like not choosing not to pay him what he got paid from Chicago. I don't think it has anything to do with the person Kobe is. I do think part of the reason Rick Woolen isn't here is maybe not because he's a bad person, but maybe that there was a little less comfort giving him a lot of money. So all these things factor in, and I think fans most of the time see the player. The team also is looking at the person.
Definitely. And Mike, just in response to what Brian and Rob have both said, when you think about maybe what the Seahawks have done, if the roles were reversed and if these wide receivers were on different teams, obviously they were going neck and neck all season. What do you think the Seahawks, and how do you think the Seahawks would handle that? Would they be as willing to extend that wide receiver?
Oh no, I think John's learned learned a lesson there, because he's done it a few times, where he's like brought in a guy and it's like, yeah, we were just saying we wanted to see there from like a character standpoint, because sometimes like you can be a model citizen all through college, high school, and then you just get to the pros and just get to bugging, that happens. But then sometimes the breadcrumbs are there. I think an example of that is Malik McDowell. Like they just kind of ignored like all the signs there, because they thought they were getting a top 10 talent with like pick 35 or something. And it was like, well, why is he available at 35, you guys? And then, that came back to bite them in an unexpected way. But and some of their trades have gone south in that same way. So, I think an example of what Brian's alluding to maybe with Reek was Frank. It was like, should we give Frank Clark $100 million? Like, well, probably not. Love Frank. $100 million at that time in Frank's life, with the history at the time of before they drafted Frank and after, is like, probably not a great idea. Send you to Kansas City, So I think we have enough data points to know that, probably not giving a market setting deal to someone who is on TMZ more than once within before the season even changes. Just bad statistics there. I mean, how many catches you have? It's like number of appearances on TMZ is like, that also matters too, if I'm gonna give you a 9-figure contract.
Hey, well, we love the publicity that JSN is getting. I loved the Seahawks just tweeting out, and I think they even posted on Instagram, just the cowboy hat emoji. I was like, for those of you that know, JSN was like undefeated in a cowboy hat when he showed up to the game. I just thought that was a nice little touch. But yeah, very excited for JSN and the positive news that we're getting out from that. But from another wide receiver, we all got excited last week that we were going to be seeing #more Bobo in Seattle. Then the Jags threw us for a little loop there for a second. But the Seahawks, they did decide to match the offer, and he will be back for another 2 years with the Seattle Seahawks. Rob, did you expect this to happen?
I mean, I didn't necessarily expect it, nor not expect it, if that makes sense. Like I was interested to see what the Seahawks were going to do, because the offer did not seem, it wasn't so bad that you could easily say the Seahawks just balking at the idea of paying it. But at the same time, it just seemed to be trending that he was going to leave. So interesting they brought him back. I kind of feel as if they've assessed what this offseason is, and they've had the combine and been able to speak to all the different teams there. They've seen what's in free agency, and they've been able to sort of take a step back after the first real flush of free agency's done. And it seems to me as if they've just decided it might not be possible to get that big trade. We obviously talked a lot about Max Crosby at the start of the offseason. It might not be possible to land somebody like that, although who knows what's going to happen in the next month. So the best chance Seattle has of being very competitive again next year is to bring back as many of the pieces that you can from last season. And then when you have lost players, Ken Walker, Reek Woolen, Kobe Bryant, Boya Mafe, try to find ways to replace them in the draft. And then obviously after the draft, there are still a number of free agents out there who presumably now are going to wait till after the draft, who could be interesting. So I think that's their plan. And bringing Bobo back in, if that is the plan, it makes sense. Like, he made some big plays at the end of the season. He's a good special teamer, good blocker. Why not? So yeah, I think it makes sense if their plan is to try and bring as many people back as possible.
Well, Mike, I know Brian was calling this maybe Operation Run It Back is basically complete. I think I heard him say, do you feel like there's maybe one more missing puzzle piece, or what would maybe make that full Operation Run It Back complete in your mind?
Probably one more edge rusher, probably. And I'd be like set there. But they're probably factoring in. Well, you get the draft, obviously, but then also, like, if you want to kick the tires on like Von Miller or something, you don't need to do that today. You can just wait. But also, like, Riley Mills is a factor there as well. He's a little heavier than someone like Boye, so not a total 1-for-1, but enough versatility. You can probably, like, if you don't get an edge rusher you like, and then Von Miller, Jadeveon Clowney, and like Cameron Jordan, whoever else is out there, Bosa, all tell you to kick rocks in like May, you can get by maybe, and then see what's up at the deadline. So I really do think the roster is in really good shape. I think, like, Puka TMZ appearance aside, the Rams roster is in good shape too. That should be fun again. But I want to read this from Jake, actually, who officially signed today. This is what, whenever they signed, you guys have probably noticed they've been talking to either Airy or John Boyle, the in-house reporters. And some of the quotes are like pretty illuminating. Some of them are just like, hey, I'm glad to be back and going back to Cabo after I signed my deal. But like, I want to read some of what Jake had to say to John today. He said, this organization gave me a shot in the NFL. I owe my career to this organization. Be able to stay here and build on what we've already built. It means a whole lot for John and the guys upstairs to put trust in me, to help this organization. I didn't want to go anywhere else. Obviously, it looked like there was a shot I was going to end up in Jacksonville, but in the back of my mind, I was hoping these guys upstairs would make something happen, and they did. I was incredibly thankful for that. And he says some more there. It's up on Seahawks.com. That was really cool because, like, I don't fault Jake either way, but like Rob was mentioning, it was an either way type of thing. If Jake had taken the money, which was more at the time than the Seahawks were offering, like, and he gets the ball more, like, he's not gonna get the ball here, like, much at all. If everyone stays healthy, that's just the reality. Jake knows that. He also doesn't care, which is like cool for Jake that makes him happy. Because if he had left and gave a statement in Jacksonville, it was like, I love my time in Seattle. I want to grow my game a lot more, and be more involved in the offense. I'm excited for new opportunity, whatever. I'd have been like, that's great for Jake too. But they kind of abolished the public nature of the NFL report cards by the NFLPA, although of course they leaked anyway. But I think the value of those was showing, like, some organizations are legitimately just better than others. You can get into the details of why: location, state income tax, coaching staffs, training rooms, travel, whatever. But that stuff does show up around this time of the offseason. These players talk, these agents talk, and so obviously Jake didn't have to ask anybody about how Seattle is. But I do think it was notable that, like, he basically turned down, he's getting the money now, but like, he was going to get a raise and more targets, in theory in Jacksonville, and was like, nah, I'll cover punts and be wide receiver 5, because I love it here. That's cool. Good for him. Again, I'm glad that makes him happy. That's cool, because not every guy's wired that way. And I understand when the guys aren't, but I do want to highlight it when they're just like, you know what, I love it here so much. I'll just play special teams and cover punts or whatever, because I love Seattle.
And I think what's impressive about Jake Bobo and even Drake Young, who is no longer with the Seattle Seahawks, and Cody White, like, those are guys, like you said, who are mainly special teams players, but like have come up big time for the Seahawks in moments when they've been given the opportunity. And when you think about just being an athlete, it's hard to kind of go from nothing to something. Like, it's hard when you're not fully in the rhythm. It's almost easier to be a starter. So for you, Brian, what excites you maybe about having Jake Bobo back? And what does it maybe just tell you about what the Seahawks are doing with not only just this wide receiver room, but maybe some of their plans for that room in the future?
Yeah, it's fun. I'm glad that Mike brought up the quotes from Bobo, because honestly, that was my first thought was, are the Seahawks sure they're getting a player back who wants to be back? Because like Jake kind of, his closing quotes in the, like, wrapping up the locker, packing up the locker day was kind of like, we're all going to part ways now. I mean, it sure sounded like he was saying goodbye, and you couldn't blame him. And I'm not totally convinced, even with the quotes, that he and his fiance weren't dreaming a little bit of Jacksonville beaches and more, more targets and that kind of stuff. But he doesn't have any control. The Seahawks can match the offer. They tendered him, so he's back. And I think he said all the right things, and I'm sure he will behave that way. I think the upside for Jake Bobo, not this year, it could happen this year, depending on, injuries or other stuff. But I think more next year is Cooper Kupp. This is almost certainly his last year with the Seahawks. And the role that Cooper Kupp plays is kind of, a power slot role. Like, it's not a little small jitterbug guy. It is a guy that can run the routes, get open, but also is a great blocker. And I think that Jake Bobo is kind of the understudy in that role and could be somebody that, becomes that type of player for them next year. So, yeah, I do think this isn't just keeping a special teams guy and a wide receiver 5. I think he could jump up in that. And I was just watching the NFC Championship again last week. And honestly, I felt a little.
I was just casually rewatching the NFC Championship.
I mean, it was only my second time that I'd seen it. And it was like, I actually still haven't watched the whole Super Bowl a second time. But when Jake Bobo caught the touchdown, I felt a little insulted that the announcer was like, Jake Bobo, like, shocked. This guy only has 2 catches. I'm like, anybody that watches the Seahawks knows that Jake Bobo is capable of a lot more than what he's been given the opportunity to do in Seattle. And if he had to take on a significant increase in his role, I think Jake Bobo would be very good in that and really take advantage of that opportunity. So I do hope for his sake that he gets to showcase all that he can do. Mike and I see it in practice, like during training camp. He's making plays that other guys aren't. And I think he's a unique player in that room. And I think he's a huge part of the culture. So all those things, I think, are a big reason why Seattle says, again, person and the player that they invested in.
Well, Brian, I love the point that you made about Cooper Kupp's influence, like kind of training up Jake Bobo in that way. And he won't be with the Seahawks for the next 10 years. But you also think about what we talked about even last season, how Cooper Kupp's impact has played out for JSN in the Offensive Player of the Year. And so, Rob, when you think about Cooper Kupp's impact on this wide receiver room, and then you keep Bobo, they re-signed Cody White, which was an addition this week. What stands out to you on maybe the evolution of what this wide receiver room could look like? If it's, the most expensive wide receiver room in the NFL, what could this look like maybe different from 2026?
Well, I mean, it might not necessarily look that different. I think it is good having Cooper Kupp there. I always think that typically, and actually I was having this conversation earlier today with someone who said that they believe that the wide receivers in the draft, for example, they think that's the deepest position in this draft. And their sort of view was, you don't need to take one of these players in round 1. You will find someone in the middle rounds who can do a very decent job. And I think that that's something that now that you're paying JSN sort of a lot of money, I'd be looking for the value and not only in the draft, but anywhere else you can find it. And if you can spend the next 12 months having a good look at Jake Bobo, finish the season very strongly. Let's see how his role develops, if at all, this year. And if it doesn't happen, then in 12 months, you can pivot and look at other things, and you might draft a receiver, or maybe you draft one this year, who knows? Or maybe Torrey Horton will come back stronger than ever and can stay healthy, and maybe he'll, develop his role instead. But I think it's just, you've got everybody back now. You've got a great mentor in Cooper Kupp. You've got the offensive player of the year at receiver as well. They look pretty loaded to me, and getting Rashid Shaheed back as well. It obviously, the one position that still is a big question mark on this offense is running back. And I do feel that to get the best out of these receivers and your quarterback, you are going to have to run the ball very well again. And how they address that running back position over the next month is going to determine a lot of things as to whether the Seahawks can be very competitive again.
Well, there's a Seahawks defensive player that I know I do want to talk about potentially being extended, but Rob, I'll let you go there for a second with the running back. We know that you were really hot on a Notre Dame running back in the draft a couple weeks ago, and maybe there's a guy that's already on an NFL team somewhere in a really warm area with palm trees that you might like as well. But where are you right now on Tuesday with who that running back could possibly be?
Well, first day on the draft, it's a thin as hell draft at running back. It just is. Like you've got limited options there, and I do think that's going to play into their thinking. There's a lot of mixed opinions on Jadarian Price. Like there are legitimately people out there who think he is around something like the 25th to 40th best player in the draft. I was speaking to someone earlier today who even said that their sort of hot take was that Jadarian Price, I was going to save this for an article, but I'll just say it now, could have a better career than Jeremiah Love. That's what they thought. So that's how.
And find the rest of that info on the article.
Yeah, I will put that out there. So, and that's not from somebody who is, sat on the couch watching the football. By the way, it's not. So you definitely have some of that, but you also have some people who think Jadarian Price is a 3rd round pick, and they don't think he is worth taking either at 32 or maybe after a small trade down. So it's hard to know. I mean, I can't guess what the Seahawks are going to think about this player. Like, he does tick a lot of boxes with his character. I think the smart, tough, reliable thing, he is a big tick in that regard. He has been. His explosive, this is the thing that why have I saved this till this point? His explosive run rate is unbelievable. So let me dig it out here. Jadarian Price's explosive run rate is the best in the draft, 21.2%. He's ahead of Jeremiah Love, 19.6. He is way ahead of everybody else. So like everybody, you've got basically got Price, Love, Mike Washington's at about 18%. And then everybody else is like 14, 12, 10% for explosive run rate. Like, he is way ahead of everybody else. That's an explosive runs that he creates per, the amount of rushes that he has. That's what the Seahawks need now. They need somebody who can make big runs whilst working probably in a timeshare. So if he can do it if he can have that at run rate, working in a timeshare at Notre Dame, it makes sense that the Seahawks would consider him. I do think that they have to balance as well. Like, if we don't take Price whenever we're picking first, who is actually going to be available later on? I think that has to be a consideration for them. The other thing I would say, you mentioned, a running back. I think Devin Achane is one of the best players in the NFL. There is no way they're going to be able to trade for him now, though, because the Dolphins have reworked his contract, which means that even though they are in the red for effective cap space now, if they trade him, they have to pay $2.5 million for him to go away. Like, they already don't have any money. Like, they need to save money. And if you look at their options on their roster right now, there's pretty much like there's Tyrell Dodson and Jordan Brooks, the 2 former Seahawks linebackers, where they can save like $5 million by moving things. There's not very much else. So I think there's a good chance they're going to end up trading one of their defensive linemen before the season in training camp or after June 1st to try and save some extra money to actually get in the black here so they can pay their rookie class. Like, this is how desperate they are because of the trade or the cutting, rather, of Tua Tagovailoa. They are in a cap disaster zone now because of that awful contract. And with what they have done with Achane, I keep calling him Achane, his contract this week, it means that they are almost certain to pay this guy and keep him rather than trade him.
So, Mike, if Achane is off the market, as Rob is telling us, where are your hopes and desires when you dream up the best possible addition to the running back room for the Seahawks?
Oh man, I love the descriptors there. Hopes, desires, dreams. I was looking at
in the draft room as well. I just wanted to break it to you now. They're allowing you in the room. That would be so fun. One of my two of my colleagues at The Athletic got to do that. I think Mike Silver was in the Jags, and I believe Jordan Rodriguez used to cover the Rams for us, was in the Rams draft room before. Seems like a super cool experience, but it also seems like being in the White House or something where it's like, all right, you're about to see all this stuff. Embargo everywhere. But it would still be cool if they were to let me in there. I was like exploring some like day 3 guys because I think I've been kind of alluding to me getting caught up in the draft here
And lately, I kind of agree with Rob. I'm like, I don't really see a ton of. I see like a couple options in the first 2 rounds, and I'm like, all right. After that, I'm just kind of not moved really. But I also should add the disclaimer, qualifier, whatever. I'm not a huge running back early person, like anyway, like generally, like I think I didn't even think I was high on like the K9 pick, full disclosure at the time. I was like, they got some other needs, which to be fair, they did. They needed another corner, they needed another tackle, they got that stuff later. But at the time, I was like, I don't know, running back. Same thing when they took Zach the next year. I was like, top 50 pick, running back. So I kind of naturally look towards who's going to be there late on or like early day 3, maybe late day 2. I like I actually, as a proud Coug, actually like the UW kid, Coleman. It's like really, really tough. Like how he's trying not to use scout language when describing how these guys are built because it gets weird. But like he's got this like short little compact build there where he's like really tough to bring down. I can't remember the Kentucky kid's name. I think Seth something. It was like really good. Correct me if I have that wrong, Rob, but I liked him. Mike Washington, dude, I don't know where he's gonna go. He might be like day 2. But I liked him as well if they don't go like really early. Like I actually have talked myself into first round running back being like a bad idea, honestly. But that's because I do see like there's some flavors that I like. There's like some powerful guys like they could get an early day 3 with a trade back or something. There's a few guys who are explosive. Rob basically named all the best explosive guys. But yeah, at first I went into the class thinking, dang, if they don't get this price, dude, what are they going to do? But I actually feel a little bit better about it now, like some guys in the back half. Right now, I think my favorite of what I've looked at is actually, the UW kid, Jonah Coleman. Just looks tough as hell to tackle. Like I can already envision him like some second preseason game running over like 6 guys on one play. He just seems really, really tough. I've kind of leaned towards that a little bit. Like when I'm watching some of these guys, like who's tough as hell to tackle, and he seems to fit that.
Hey, that's a quality we would love the Seahawks to pick up in a running back. Brian, when you think about the first round option for the Seattle Seahawks, are you leaning towards running back? Do you have more of the Mike perspective? Where are you on that right now as the chips have fallen?
I've started to kind of been tempted by some of the interior offensive line, to be honest. Like there's a player named Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon who I think is worthy of the 32nd overall pick. Caden Proctor probably won't be available then, and he's maybe not a great fit for the zone scheme, but he's a violent athlete that I think will play well at guard in the NFL. And it's interesting though. Like I got to admit, I've dug in a little bit more on running back, and I've watched a lot of Jadarian Price because there's been so much talk about Jadarian Price. A lot of his runs, there is no contact until he's past the line of scrimmage. I'm not seeing like a lot of examples of him breaking tackles, avoiding tackles. I see him running quickly and around people, which is good, but I have not been like taken. And he's actually like, he's not the fastest guy. His explosive numbers, to Rob's point, are really good, but I'm not seeing a first round running back in Jadarian Price. I just don't see it. Mike Washington has gotten so much love because of the 4.33 he ran. That guy runs into his own players as much as he runs away from other. Like he is not a particularly lateral quickness kind of guy. He's a straight line speed. I don't see his play speed actually matching his 40 time that much. So I don't think he's a second round pick for me. And so honestly, when I started getting into the running backs, I like Jonah Coleman, as Mike was talking about. I actually think Emmett Johnson is like going to be a successful NFL running back. He is not going to be your breakaway guy, but I see him avoiding tackles, breaking tackles in ways that I don't see some of these other guys. And I'm going to throw out a total, like Rob's probably going to laugh at me and make some very astute point about why this is crazy. There's a different guy from Kentucky who's really got my attention. His name's Kendrick Law. He is a receiver, and he's almost exclusively a bubble screen, like yards after catch receiver. As I was watching him, I was like, they line this guy up in the backfield. He's 5'11", 205 pounds, not the biggest, but he runs like 4.4, something like that. I'm like, Velus Jones was a receiver all through college and became a running back in the NFL. Kendrick Law is maybe as exciting of a runner with the ball in his hands as anybody in this draft. and he might be available in the 6th round. So like, I'm interested in taking a flyer, and maybe you get 2, maybe you get a couple guys to throw on the mix and see how it goes. So that's where I am right this second. A little bit lower on the guys that other people are really high on, and maybe a little bit higher on guys that other people are maybe lower on.
Well, Rob, what are your thoughts on that? Because for a little bit of the season, it really felt like Rashid Shaheed was a running back for the Seattle Seahawks. Is basically what he was doing, and hopefully we're hoping to see exceedingly more from him in the passing game as well, as we know he can do. But what are your thoughts on what Brian had to say there?
I've not studied Kendrick Law, so I can't share much on that, I'm afraid. I do have a few thoughts on some of the other ones that came up. I mean, I think Emmanuel Pregnon's a very interesting player because his explosive testing is unbelievable. Now, I've spent about 10 years sort of trying to make this point while people have been talking about how important the short shuttle is and stuff like that for offensive linemen, that explosive traits, the things that the league looks for. And if you actually look at his testing, he's in a very similar level to, I mean, the following players. Tell me if these players sound pretty good. Teron Armstead, Rashawn Slater, Lane Johnson, Armand Membu, Tristan Wirfs. You know, he is in that kind of a ballpark as an explosive tester. He's got long arms. He's got shovels for hands, 11-inch hands. His zone blocking grade was better than anybody else's in this draft. I think if you actually watch him on tape, he's probably better suited to gap scheme, but he can do the zone stuff. That's the thing. I just don't understand why he's Todd McShay, who was great. He's got him like 60th or something on his big board. I don't see that personally. I think the Steelers might take him at 21 because their biggest need right now is guard. And I just think when you test that well and your tape's that good, I don't see how an offensive lineman as good as he is sticks around to round 2. So I think he's really good. And if he was there at 32, he could definitely be an option. Caden Proctor might actually last a bit longer than people think. The thing that I'm hearing is a little bit that he was 380 pounds when he went to Alabama, and he's now got into about 360. But there's a definite feeling that he might be just one of those people who's addicted to eating, and that
Did you see Mike's face when you said?
I could maybe me. Like hey, listen, I think a lot of us could say I'm addicted to eating. Helps me survive.
It's pretty good.
I think
not 360 good.
I think there's a little bit of concern that he's constantly going to need to be managed through this, and that he's going to have to kick inside to guard. Couple of quick points. Jonah Coleman, I think he is such an enigma because he only had 2 100-yard games last season, and that was against Colorado State and UC Davis. And he worked in a timeshare at Washington, and it was often the other guys who looked better. And in the other games that he had, that wasn't Boise State, who were terrible last year, Colorado State and UC Davis, in the other 10 games that he played, so all of the Big Ten slate, he averaged 3.2 yards per carry. It's not good. His yards per attempt, if you include all of his games last season, he was tied 160th in college football last year. If I'm taking someone to play in the NFL, they have to be better than that. And the other thing I noticed from him is he doesn't have many yards after contact. Like, he only had 562 yards after contact last season. And what you notice with him is he's very difficult to get hold of because he's so small. He's 5'8", he's about 220 pounds. He's a very unorthodox shape, really. And he's quite slippery through tackles at times because he's so small. But when you hit him, he goes down. And he's not a big tackle breaker. The other thing I noticed from him is he's pretty slow. That works to his favor. So when he gets out into space, he's almost, I've been calling it forced patience. Because he's not quick, he's actually able to sort of, okay, I'm diagnosing what's in front of me here. I'll choose which way to run. And it helps him. It actually
I like
helps
that.
him.
Forced patience. I'm indecisive, but it's forced patience.
But I don't know if in the NFL he's just going to get caught from behind. That's the problem with it. And there's definitely stuff like his hands are good. Like there are things to like. His character is great. He feels like very much like a Seahawks type of person. I think he's going to go a bit later than people think. And I certainly wouldn't want to hang my hat on him when he couldn't be the main man at Washington. I just have a hard time thinking. how can he be the main man in Seattle? Emmett Johnson is really is a cool prospect, though. He was just somebody at Nebraska last year. When you put Nebraska games on, not many people did because they were awful, and especially when they lost their quarterback. But when you did, he jumped off the screen.
Yeah. I have a question for all of you. Do you think John would draft a guard in back-to-back years in the first round after he hasn't done that ever before? Like, he had never drafted a guard in the first round before. Do you think he would go back-to-back?
I do. I mean, I just very quickly, I've got a theory on why he might. I like to play Detective Brian sometimes, and I just wondered when ESPN put their article out saying what each team might do, and the Seahawks reporter Brady Henderson just speculated a little bit, like, well, they're not going to overpay for a guard, but they might just dig around in that market. And Lance Zierlein a few weeks ago put a tweet out saying, "Tell me what your team is going to look for. It will help me with my mocks." And I just said, look, here's a few positions that you probably know this already, but here you go from a Seahawks perspective. And I didn't include guard. And he replied to me and said, "I'm here in an interior offensive line." So take it with a pinch of salt. I'm just kind of piecing things together and thinking maybe they've seen one or two interior offensive linemen they like, and maybe Pregnon's one of them.
Mike, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think they will. I think he just views, and Pete was this way too. He just kind of viewed each draft individually, you know, even each position individually too, and their needs, like everything viewed, you know, independent of one another, whether that's like some I think it was last year, like how many they took, like 10 guys, but I think only like 2 of them were on defense or something like that. And the question was like, oh, it is because, you know, your offense turned over with the coaches and whatever, that you needed offensive guys. You know, it was like 9 of their 11 dudes or something were offense. It's like, no, it's kind of how the board fell. And I do believe that, because then there has been years where he's like, okay, like when Doug retired, which came out, I think, on the second day of the draft, they took like 3 receivers. Where it was like, well, yes, in this instance, we just lost Doug. So we need a bunch of receivers. And they took John Ursua, Gary Jennings, and DK. But then in some years, it's like, well, no, we just so happened to the best player was on this, you know, this side of the ball. And then sometimes it'd been like the year they took LJ, it was like, well, we just took LJ because like 5 days ago we traded Frank. So we kind of panic in. We think we need alignment. So like each year is different, each position is different. So I do generally think, especially now where it seems like the drafting's got a little better, where it's like, all right, if the best guy on the board right now is the kid we were just talking about at guard, I would take him. You know, who cares what we just did last year? It doesn't matter. That's last year. And that's good. That's how teams should operate as well. Whether you're taking, even if you're taking like a quarterback multiple years in a row or whatever, like the Cardinals did, I think, with Josh Rosen and Kyler, like just take whoever's best for you that year. I think they've gotten to that point, which is good. And yeah, if the best guy's a guard, then take a guard. You can never really go wrong, like loading up on anything in the trenches. It's kind of like, the more I study the draft, I'm like, my default almost would be like, all right, who's in the trenches? If everyone's tied, or a quarterback, obviously, but a non-quarterback's like, all right, give me a guy in the trenches, D tackle, D whatever. You just can't go wrong there. We see it every year in January and February. It's largely determined by which teams have depth and just talent in the trenches. So yeah, I could easily see John doing that.
Yeah, Brian, I like that question because we've spent so much of this show and even shows in prior weeks talking about the running back. They're going to draft the wide receiver, the cornerback, and Seahawks will very well do what Mike is saying and help protect Sam Darnold so that he's able to hit the top wide receiver in the nation in JSN. But a question for you, Brian, just because, you know, a lot of these pro days are coming up and the big thing is the media attention that they get and the players working out and all those things. And you'll see a lot of NFL head coaches there as well. If we see Mike McDonald or John Schneider at a pro day or with a certain player, or we see them at a certain school, what does that tell you? Is that a big telltale sign that they are really interested in a player? Is it more for show? Historically, what do you think that might tell us about how much they really are interested in a certain player?
Yeah, I mean, the guys and you as well, AB, help me out with memory here, but memory serves me. I don't think you generally get John Schneider or the head coach going to pro days unless they've got a really high pick. Like when they had the 5th overall pick, they were going to pro days, and honestly, they were at the Jalen Carter pro day when he basically was out of shape and unable to complete the drills, and everyone's like, oh, it's the off the field stuff where he got this in trouble with police. I could not imagine Pete Carroll picking a player who was not competitive enough to finish drills. Like that just was so antithetical to how they ran that organization. So I think those are the times where you're going to see it. If they're like looking at a quarterback, like the more that's at stake, the more likely you're going to get something like that. I think John really trusts the guys in his organization, Nolan Teasley and Matt Berry, and like all the guys that are running player acquisition and the scouts that go there. So, I mean, if they show up, it's notable. It absolutely is. And maybe there's been reports that they've been at some of these that I've missed, and that was very possible since I was out last week. But generally speaking, I think you're going to get more scouts going to those. And honestly, it was kind of the first time I've ever heard John kind of say, I'm catching up on the college prospects after the combine. Like, this is like he's flying home from the combine so he can watch film on these guys. That felt very unique. And I know that they just won the Super Bowl and had the latest start to their offseason. It's hard for me to imagine John Schneider wasn't deep into draft prep in 2012, 2013, 2014, even during those runs, because it's just that's his baby.
Well, the reason I asked too is obviously want to get their perspective and what you thought about those two figures in the Seattle Seahawks organization. But like Mike Vrabel was up at the Boston College Pro Day, and just wondering, I don't even know if UW had their pro day yet, but Mike, just wondering from you on that, obviously your perspective on Mike McDonald and John Schneider attending and what that might look like. And just even your comments on the trust that he has with his scouting organization, like Brian has said.
Yeah, I think UW had its pro day last week. Okay. So
Denzel Boston put on a show.
That's right. Yeah. He's good. I got to find a Coug to give some love to. I'm giving too much Husky love. They had some good players though. Objectively, they just did. I know they went to here in the draft in general, everything is about checking a box or answering a question on a player. And for each player, that's different, right? Like sometimes you might want to go so you can meet the guy. That's it. You don't even care what he does. Sometimes like, okay, I need to see this kid run. We haven't seen him run. John Schneider went to Josh Allen's pro day in Wyoming. That was a big deal for Russ's agent and Russ. But part of that was because he had tried to see, I think, Josh play at San Jose State before they played the Niners, and Josh Allen was hurt, I believe. So he's like, well, I just want to see him live. I haven't seen him live. So everyone's different. Sometimes, like, we're bringing the kid in for a 30 visit. We may love the kid, we may not. We may just want to poke around on his knee or his back or his neck or whatever. You know, Bobby had like the blood thing that popped up. Bobby Wagner did when he visited. You know, everybody is different. So with JSN, for instance, they needed to see him because he had hurt his hand. He had hurt his hammy and basically didn't play all year. So it was like, well, let's see him run. And then I think he worked out, and obviously that went really well. So it's different for each situation. So I will say that, but yes, it is generally notable if they do show up to watch a kid, because it's also it's just not easy to get to, you know, wherever some of these schools are from Seattle too. So if you make the effort
not in Seattle. I mean,
you
really
make
like
the effort to go to like South Carolina's pro day or something just to pull a school out, like that's a private jet situation. You know, it's expensive, right? To go to all those, to go see Will Levis and Anthony Richardson and CJ and Bryce Young, I believe was the other quarterback that year. They're pretty sure they were PJing around the country. It's expensive, right? So that's also why it's notable as well. I think they took a PJ to go see Josh Allen. Where's that's Laramie, I think, Wyoming, right? Yeah, you're not going commercial there. Yeah, so that's expensive, but it mattered because they wanted to go see Josh live. And that's the year they did not have a like super high pick. I think their native pick was 18. I believe the pick that became Jair Alexander, traded back to Penny. So if you do see Mike, you do see John there. Yeah, it's like it's one of those Brian Windhorst little meme, like, why would they do that? You know, I'm not like scouring the internet looking for those things, but when I do see them, I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Who's there? Who's not? But yeah, like Brian said, there's just a lot of faith in the for lack of a better term, the underlings. You know, when I was writing my book, when I talked to Matt Berry from my book about the history of Legion of Boom era, like one of the things that he was really happy about when John got hired was how much faith he had in how much faith John had in Matt's reports about his area. I think he had the Southwest at the time, like Earl. There was a lot of that region. Like Sam Bradford was the top pick, so like that region had a lot of guys. And they really relied on like his reports on that. And like he had done a lot of work on Earl. I think he lived in Texas at the time as well. And John's always kind of been that way, where it's like, yeah, I trust you. If you got this region, Northeast, Midwest, whatever, like I'm leaning on you. I'm trusting you here. Because yeah, John can only be in so many places. So yeah, that's been John's calling card, like it's from the beginning, from the very first draft. And there's no reason, looking at how they drafted, for him to come up off of that philosophy.
Well, if the Seahawks are looking to hire internally, I know someone who might know a lot of things about a lot of guys who might cover all the regions from a very far region away. So you never know, Rob. Maybe your name will get floated out there. But just a question for you, Rob, because I think a lot of fans will see reports come out of, oh, this player visited with this team and this player visited with this team. So on the reverse of kind of what we're talking about, what might that look like for a player to visit or have a visit with the Seahawks? And what does that really mean? And how important is that when it actually comes down to draft day and who they end up taking?
Very important. It's the one thing that I pay attention to, because the teams will generally meet with every player, like whether that's at the Shrine, the Senior Bowl, the Combine, some of the smaller school players who don't necessarily go to one of the main all-star games. The teams will meet up with players out and about at the various different smaller all-star games as well. So they will meet either formally or informally with a lot of players. The official 30 visits are always important. Now, just because you take an official 30 visit to Seattle doesn't necessarily mean they're going to draft you, but they want to see how you fit in the building. It shows a layer of interest. You are not wasting an official 30 visit on a player and wasting their time and your time, get them in your building because you have zero interest in drafting these players. There is a reason to get some of these players in. We already have confirmation on several. It's quite interesting. There's a lot of defensive backs who are going to Seattle. So Chris Johnson, best zone grade in the draft class, is going or has had a visit to Seattle. That's very interesting. He's a player who's moving up and could be an option for them at 32. He feels like a very much in that smart, reliable, tough mentality for the Seahawks. They obviously want to just have him in and see if that is absolutely the case because he's taken a visit. Jalen Kilgore, who is just, for me, you just have to look at the guy and go, he's a fit for the dark side defense. He is somebody who plays safety, can play cornerback, he's big, he can move him around, moving into different places, very productive, interceptions. He's coming in for a visit. They're going to check him out. They're going to check out AJ Halsey, who's this kind of old school, hit you in the face safety. He's not as quick, but he did play free safety for LSU, which was a little bit weird. Former quarterback, he says that he plays the game as if he is sort of reading the field like a quarterback, but he applies that to his safety position. He's coming in for a visit as well. You've got Dalen Everett, extremely athletic cornerback at Georgia, who might, he's somebody who very athletic, tall, has some length. If you're looking for somebody who can basically be Reek Woolen, Dalen Everett could be that guy. So he's somebody to definitely keep an eye on. He's coming in for a visit. And Andre Fuller at Toledo, who I've not had a chance to study yet. And then a couple of small school running backs as well are coming in for a visit too. They're the only ones we've had confirmed. I'm keeping an eye on all of those players because they very much either will be Seahawks because they're drafted or they're going to be undrafted players that they bring in. There's always something to gain from looking at those official 30 lists. They are, to me, pretty important.
Who was that cornerback that you said, the lengthy one, Everett? What was his name?
Dalen Everett.
That is a great name. And when you think about the wide receivers now in the NFC West, that could be very helpful. But
he plays a lot like Reed Woolen as well. Like he has really good play, then really bad play. So he would fit the bill in that regard too.
Well, we will see who it ends up being. But I do want to make sure that people can stay up to date with what you all have going on because I know you got a lot going on. So, Brian, we'll start with you. What's the next week look like for you?
I will tell you in 1 second. Just a quick thing on Rob's note about 30 visits. So last year, I was just looking this up. I don't have all 30 of the visits, but Nicky Manwari, Bryce Cabledew, Jalen Milroe were all 30 visits. And if you go back the year before that, a lot of the 30 visits, almost all of their draft picks were also 30 visits. So there is a pretty high correlation there. I actually am having a first-time guest on tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. James Foster, who has done a lot of draft stuff and has a great site that he's put together, is going to come on. We're going to talk draft, talk about this amazing site he's built that's got all sorts of great content. So I'm looking forward to that. And I got a lot of more fun stuff coming up. Might have a Real Hawk Talk tomorrow night, figuring out exactly who's going to be co-hosting. So and if you haven't already, get the book We Did Not Care, hawkblogger.com/book. Number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list, at least for 1 week. It was cool.
Let's go. That's amazing. Congratulations, Brian. We did not care, but you should care. You should care enough to get the book. Definitely check it out. We're very proud and happy for Brian. Mike, what do you have coming up this week?
Well, I'm still on PTO, which is great. Much needed. But I did in advance. I got a big board coming out. I forget how many prospects are on there, like 30 or so. Some guys I like in each round. It's going to be fluid, but I had to do something to feed the beast here. It was supposed to come out yesterday, I believe, but then Jax happened, or whenever Jax happened. My days are running together. So I think that should drop on Wednesday or tomorrow. Is tomorrow Wednesday? Yes, that should drop tomorrow. And then I think Chris and I, our next Seahawks Man, will probably be next week. I would imagine. Yeah. So I won't be at. I think they're doing a Jax press conference tomorrow. I won't be at that. I'll be doing dad stuff. My big board should be up tomorrow, and then probably pod again the top of next week.
All right, lots of podcasts for Mike on the time off. We appreciate the content. And Rob, we know you alluded to maybe an article that you were starting to write. You're like, whatever, I'm going to say it. Tell us a little bit more about what you have in the works.
Well, there's a load of articles on there now, so check out SeahawksDraftBlog.com. I am now off from the day job for the next 10 days. I'm going to Vegas on Sunday, but I was supposed to be going to Dubai.
Welcome back to the States, Rob. Welcome back.
Yeah, well, I was supposed to be going to Dubai, but you can't go to Dubai at the moment because of you guys. So now I'm going to you. I'm going to visit you instead. So I'm going to pay. I said to the woman who's our travel agent, I said, get me somewhere else where there is guaranteed sun. And she came up with Vegas. So we're going there. So I'm heading over there. I've never been before. I have absolutely no idea if I'm going to like it, but I'm heading over there. But what I like to do at this time is go on holiday and then spend half the day at the pool and then half the day writing. So that's my plan for it will not be to be in a casino. It will be to chill out, get some sun on this head, and then get some writing done. So there'll be lots of stuff over the next month, just SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Like I say, it's free, no commercials, no adverts, no subscriptions needed. Just check it out. Make the work worthwhile, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Let's go. Fun trips for everyone, it seems like, coming up. That is so awesome. And definitely stay tuned to all the articles that Rob has that he will be soaking in the sun and getting those great thoughts out on the paper. But I did have a Sports Spectrum interview drop with Jalen Sundell. Incredible story of just his undrafted journey. Some funny stories that he did have from the Super Bowl. So definitely check that out. And then 3 of my Senior Bowl interviews with guys that I sat down. Rob, tell me if you know these names. Tanner Koziol, tight end from Houston. Josh Cameron, wide receiver out of Baylor. And Malachi Fields, Notre Dame wide receiver. All incredibly awesome guys with their own different adversities that they face through college as well. So really cool to just know the athlete behind the helmet and under the helmet. And yeah, hopefully maybe one day we will see one of those guys be a Seattle Seahawk, but I don't know. I guess that'll be up to Rob and maybe Mike if he is in the draft room. But make sure to stay in tune with what these guys have coming up. We are 30 days away from the NFL draft. It is coming up close, but more football to come. So tune in next Tuesday. Good night and go Seahawks.